my season's been more up and down. So start of the year was really strong. Got a win at Silverstone, and then also at Alton Park, and then had a podium here, and then kind of went into a few bad weekend results for different reasons. And then the last couple of rounds have sort of shown a bit more potential again. So I had a few 8th places at Cadwell, and then 3 5th places at Alton Park last round. So I was like, oh, that's better. We're moving back in the direction of being on the podium again. And even though, you know, I was, as I've said, 8ths and 5ths and so on, I was closer to the front, and, you know, the leading group was just in front of me. And it wasn't like we were 10 seconds behind in 5th. We were right in the group. So that gave us some real encouragement. And as I said, we had a podium here early in the year. So we've come back with high expectations for this round. And from the first session of practice, I haven't really been able to get the confidence or the feel or the grip or whatever it is to go as quick as I've been here before. So that's a bit of a surprise, really. On a more technical side, it seems like for me, when I'm riding the bike, it's always corner entry is where I'm losing most of the time. Of course, you go slow into a corner and lose performance there, but then that sort of messes up your mid speed, and then that also affects your exit speed. So although it might appear like I'm exiting a corner slowly, it's probably more the fact that I'm not getting the bike stopped and set up properly on the way into the turn. So we've been working on quite a few things to try and overcome this problem. I feel like we've just created a different version of the same problem. We've made changes, and the bike has reacted to those changes. So it's like, oh yeah, we've made the bike shorter so it pitches more, we've made it longer so it's more stable, and it's reacting in the correct way for the changes we're making, but it's not actually improving the bike on corner entry. I can't get the rear wheel to actually grip the track. So every time I jump on the brakes, the rear starts to slide, and it doesn't come out like really a long way, but it's just constantly sort of like drifting on the way into the turn. So I can't lower the speed and decelerate quick enough, or decelerate at the rate I need to be at the speed I know I can go and at least be competitive with some of the other riders. So I've had a really poor qualifying, and the mechanics are at the moment working away, studying changes we've made this weekend versus what we've had here in the past versus what Pete's got in his bike. And I'm sure they're going to do something pretty cool for the race that maybe I will make a difference, and we'll move forward and get a good result. And the beauty of the Superbike Championship is the qualifying, as much work and energy as we put into qualifying, it only is relevant to the grid position for the first race. So our lap time from the first race will dictate where we are in the next, and then the lap time from that race will dictate the next race. So I just have to get the bike right in the first race, come through the field with good speed, set a good lap time, and I could be in a good position for tomorrow. Yeah, welcome. I hope you've enjoyed the staff, how well they've treated you, and hopefully you've been well looked after. And it's our opportunity to tell you a little bit about how our weekend's been going, and give you a bit more insight, a bit more details about the bikes and how we ride them and the track. So like Pete said, we do often have much the same setup as in the bike. But what I think the big difference is how we describe the same problem. Like often we've got the same issue with the bike, and Pete will explain it, and I'll be like, yeah, that's the problem I've got, but I would have explained it in a different way. So it's more just different personalities and how you feel and how you interpret and then explain that feeling you have with the bike. And that's why the crew is so important, and why teams that have been together for a long period of time often are quite more successful, because they understand each other. They know the lingo and the words that you use to describe the bike, and you're more in line with each other. Even like some mechanics can kind of read the look on your face before you've even said anything about the bike. They're like, oh, he doesn't like that, or yeah, he's really happy with the bike. Obviously, the wet conditions, it's not as critical to have the setup. Obviously, a setup for wet conditions is still important, but it's not as critical as you need for the dry sessions. So yeah, I was able to move forward, got all the way up to 7th. Everything felt really good. But fortunately, the the adjustments we've made during the weekend and understanding more and more the areas that I was sort of complaining about the bike not performing, which is basically corner entry, engine brake control. Those settings have been an improvement, and I was able to maintain my position around the front-ish group. So I was actually quite surprised at the result. I mean, it probably sounds strange for me as a previous championship winner and having a great career of winning and then being happy with a seventh. From where I was at the start of the weekend, that's why I'm happy. Not so much for the result itself, but to see the improvement and the progression. But I was still pretty cross at the end of the race. Just frustrated with the fact that we can't be stronger, and I know that we should be able, Pete and myself should be able to be in that battle for the podium at minimum. Race 2, and that was dry. I was a bit pessimistic, I think is the word, like before the race, because I knew the dry weather conditions we hadn't shown any good pace. But I even surprised myself, once I got away with the front guys, the improvements we made, the team had made with the bike, were pleasantly in the right direction and a good step forward, and I was able to stay with the lead group. I did drop a little bit towards the end of the race, but the fact that I was able to maintain my position and not just drop through the grid, like it would have been if the bike was just as it was at qualifying, was really positive. We got a lot of encouragement from that. The track was brand new at the start of this year. It had been resurfaced in the winter, and the grip level that the circuit was offering was really high level, like unnatural level of grip. So the soft tyre that we used today in the race, when we tried to ride on that tyre at the start of the year, it would only last about 7 laps at best. And then it was completely destroyed. All the rubber was tearing away from the body of the tyre. The grip of the track was just too strong for the rubber of the tyre to be able to withstand it. So everyone was using an SC0 tyre, which is the harder option. But 6 months on, we're back here again, and the X tyre is working throughout the whole distance of the race. So obviously, all the sharp stones that the surface is made of has been slightly polished by all the cars and bikes that have been going around all year. And the track condition has changed a lot. So the settings and things that we had in the bike prepared for this event didn't work at all. In fact, I really struggled in the first practice, and obviously you think, well, the bike's the same as it was the last time you should be ready to go straight away, but it really didn't work out that way. Even more so than what we anticipated.
We get ready for the race, so we have to shoot off, but hopefully you enjoy the show.
To start that race in wet conditions, I actually prefer to race in dry. I'm sure everybody does, but knowing that our dry race pace has been quite disappointing, I was not completely upset to see it wet track ahead to start the race. So early laps I was not really comfortable. Vision was quite an issue, not because of the equipment, but just because of the sheer volume of water coming off the bikes around you, and particularly even like when I just had Tommy in front, I was so close to Tommy that the volume of water coming off, it just didn't clear quick enough to get clear vision. And I made quite a few mistakes. I felt like I had a bit better speed and pace than Tommy, but I found it very hard to get past because every time I was right up close is when the vision was at its worst, and I'd make a small mistake and then lose ground again. So it was actually really difficult on that aspect, which but the track conditions were quite manageable. Normally in the wet, particularly this end of the year, it's normally very cold. So yeah, that's normally what makes these conditions treacherous, but because the temperature is actually not that bad today, it's wet but it's not cold. The racing was still quite good racing. We felt comfortable on the bike, and the slips and spins weren't like as if you're about to crash at any minute, which it sometimes can feel like. So I actually had quite a good race. I felt like, by the time I got past Tommy, Christian and Leon were long gone. Obviously Jason was well ahead. So I did try to take some of the gap away from Christian, and then hopefully he would see that gap closing and then make a mistake, because look how many mistakes have been made this weekend. It is easy for that to happen. So I wanted to put the pressure and keep the pressure on Christian, but then Leon's bike popped and that was the race red flags. I was gifted the podium, but at this point, with it being so long between podium opportunities, I'm very grateful for this position. I'd love to have fought for it a bit harder and actually been more deserving, but yeah, still pleased to be here all the same. So I look forward now to brands, because like I said, the championship isn't putting any pressure on me. I can just go there relaxed and try and finish out the year really strong. I like the track. When we were there earlier in the year, the results weren't fantastic, but we showed signs of having good possibility for results. So hopefully, yeah, that's a better weekend for us.